So I just want to say thank you to our panelists from our last and the first panel. As I mentioned before when I was talking, one of the groups that we really wanted to focus on as a part of the evaluation were the service providers themselves and how the implementation of the Partnership for Hope waiver worked and how it impacted their jobs. And so we did a lot of work with them, and I'm only going to be able to touch on a little bit of it today. But before I do that, I just want to mention that one of the things that we're doing right now is all of the results from our evaluation are being written up into a final report, and we're going to make it look really nice. Rachel Hiles, who has been doing all of this for us, is doing all of the editing, and she's excellent. So we'll have a very nice report. If anyone would like copies of that, it'll be made available. We'll have some hard copies. It'll also be made available in PDF versions, both on the MAC website and on the division's website. So, and on our website. So that'll be out by the end of the month, and it will give more information than we're able to really include in our presentations today. So now I want to talk a little bit then about the professionals. And before we get started, next slide please. Before we really get started, I'm just going to give some context, which I know everyone here is aware of, but this really provides the reasons why we decided to look at how it was impacting service providers. And the first is that, as you all know, we have extraordinarily high rates of turnover and job vacancies in service provision in our field. And so, that's not just in Missouri, that's around the country. It's been documented all over the place, and that's primarily because we are only able to pay low wages. We don't often offer quality health benefits. And those are two of the major reasons for high rates of turnover and vacancies. Research suggests that high rates of turnover, high vacancies, and lower wages among direct support professionals who serve consumers utilizing HCBS waivers are negatively associated with consumer quality of life as well. So it's not just the service providers themselves, but it's impacting the people that they're supporting. And the one exception that we've found with this is related to self-directed supports. And so service professionals who provide self-directed supports are more likely to be satisfied with their compensation and their work conditions, even though they're less likely to have health insurance and other benefits. They still end up being happier. So with that, we wanted to look at, well, how is the Partnership for Hope impacting these things? Next slide, please. So with the professional impact study, we wanted to look at how it's impacting the professionals. This study included focus groups, which some of you may have participated in. And we did 4 focus groups, and those took place in Boone County, Jasper County, St. Charles County, and Clay County. And then we also did a series of just one-on-one interviews with professionals. And the table at the bottom of this slide shows you all the different counties where we had representation. Ultimately, we had representation from 18 counties and 46 professionals. Next. And so I won't spend much time on this slide, partly because I printed it too small and I can't really read it. I need some glasses. But these are the questions that we asked the folks that we interviewed, and these were questions that were developed by. Well, I'm all right. Thanks. These are questions that were developed by our advisory committee, but really you see that they focus on a variety of things. The first thing that we did in every case is we just said, do you have a story about how the Partnership for Hope has impacted your work or the lives of the people with whom you are working? And so, we got a lot of really great information. And to be honest with you, a lot of times we would ask that one question, and in their description or their story, they would answer every other question or most of the other questions. And so it was really a great question to start with. And I bet you can guess who was the person who recommended that question. Does anyone have ideas? It was Les. He who always has a story. And so he recommended that we ask that question. It ended up being a great thing. So really we wanted to look at whether or not it's delayed more costly forms of care or levels of care for the participants. We wanted to know about new jobs, both for individuals they were supporting, but was it creating new jobs for service providers as well? So we wanted to learn about what were the benefits and the challenges of the waiver. And then one of the other things, which you heard in the earlier panel, we wanted to see, has it changed sort of the culture of service delivery? And so those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about. Like I said, we got a lot of information from this. We don't have quite enough time to talk about all of it. So I want to highlight a few of them. Next slide, please. Next one, yeah. So what we did is we did the interviews, then we transcribed everything, and then we had a team of people that included Kelly and myself and a couple other people. We read through all of the transcripts, and we created a set of codes, and then we talked about them, and then we each took the transcripts individually, coded them individually, and then came together and compared what our answers. So did we all code them the same thing? And if we didn't code particular passages in the same way, then we would talk about it and figure out, well, how should this be coded, and what do we think this means? And ultimately, we came up with the codes that you see listed here. They'll be on the left there. And then the definition for each of those codes is on there. So I believe there are 19 total codes. They're pretty broad, just because if you get too discrete, you end up having a lot of codes. But as you see, when they were talking about the Partnership for Hope and answering the questions that we asked, most often, or the thing that they talked about most often, was how the Partnership for Hope increased access to community-based services for people. And then they would go on to talk about, how that's impacted people's lives, what the benefits of the Partnership for Hope were on the quality of life, both of the people that they were supporting, but also on their own quality of life. Another item that they spent a lot of time talking about were, I shouldn't say a lot of time, but that they did talk about were some of the challenges associated with the Partnership for Hope. And I'm not going to touch on those so much in this presentation, but really all of the challenges that people talked about were things that we heard the panel talking about earlier, things that they were worried about. They were worried about the cap. We did these interviews fairly early in the existence of the Partnership for Hope program, and some of the counties where we did interviews had just signed on to do it, and so they felt like the cap of $12,000 was going to be one of the largest challenges that they would experience. And you'll see that 18 different people, or 18 different mentions of that particular topic, comments about the cap. Other items that were really they talked a lot about were the culture and how the Partnership for Hope impacted the culture of service provision, And then they provided a lot of examples of specific disability-related supports that were provided through the waiver. So next slide. So I'm just going to, in the little bit of time that I have left, I'm going to talk about three of the items that they talked about the most. And the first was access. And so these are some of the things that people said. I won't read each of these word for word. But one that I want to, actually I'll read the whole thing, is the one from Jasper County. And before I read it, I'll just say a lot of the comments, really what they said is the Partnership for Hope isn't really making new services, but it's just making all of our services accessible to people. And then we had comments like this one from Jasper County, which this person said, it's actually impacted people that aren't in the waiver too, because it is a 20/20/60 match, and they allowed us to refinance some people that all of their services were being funded by our Senate Bill 40 board. So whereas maybe our board was spending $1,000 on an individual, now they're spending $200, and they're taking that $800 and they are about to provide services for people that maybe don't have Medicaid and can't get the spending, and can't get the waiver. And so whereas right now our board is spending around $77,000 a year on partnership waiver costs, but that is funding about $370,000 worth of service, and then beyond that, what they saved, they were servicing, I messed that up, sorry. And then beyond that, what they saved, they were servicing other people that can't be in the waiver. So it wasn't just providing access to Partnership for Hope participants or to Medicaid waiver recipients. It was also making access services accessible to people who weren't participants. Next slide, please. The next thing I want to talk about are just some of the benefits that people talked about. And so we had a variety of them. Right now I want to focus on a couple of the rural counties that participated, starting with Mississippi County. Les had told a story earlier. We heard him tell it here, and then also on the video about a situation where a family wasn't able to stay together, just mostly because of the stress that it caused. And so one of the support providers in Mississippi County said that the Partnership for Hope will keep families together because the family isn't completely under stress. Just that's a really amazing part. In Henry County, it's another person said, it was an exciting point because it opened up so many doors for so many people, especially in the rural communities. The nice thing is having more flexibility than some of the programs. Just make sure. And then we had a couple really great quotes from Boone County, one of which I'll point out to you, which is the bottom one there, and it said, and young adults who had graduated high school, for a lot of them, if they weren't in crisis, it meant that everything ended at high school graduation. And we heard that particular comment over and over again, is that for those kids who were leaving high school and no longer had the guaranteed supports and services, they now had other options and didn't have to just sit in their homes. Okay, next, please. And then lastly, just for now, I want to talk a little bit about the culture and some of the things that we heard about the culture change. And we heard a lot about this during the panel discussion, and to me this seemed like one of the most powerful aspects of it as it regarded service provision and people just being happy in their jobs. And so here in Boone County, we had a person that said, I managed the wait list, so prior to Partnership for Hope, my role consisted in adding people to the wait list who wanted services. And that was not, a fun part of my job, to tell people, I'm sorry, you only rank a 7. And after the partnership, we steadily eliminated the wait list. It's gone, And so now I keep myself busy bringing over referral packets to the regional office. So, and we heard that same thing as we did on our panel discussion. It has had a big impact. We talk a lot about the impact that it has on individuals and on their families, and we will present some more information on that. But I think one of the things that we don't talk enough about is how it has changed both, as was mentioned on our panel, the relationships between the county boards and the division, as well as changed just the culture of service provision in the state. So thank you.